Hello everybody, my name is Eric Mullins, and today we're going to be checking out Apex Innovations, Plenloon Glaze, Genshin Impact's Ganyu! In all her elegance and splendor and glory, she's a 1-on-7 figure. Apex Innovations is actually a Chinese company, so let's see how it holds up to some of the Japanese products that I've gotten over the years. Starting with the base, it is so gorgeous. I think it's very cute. I like how it's three-dimensional. I love the colors. You get a lot of highlights and some shading. It's just beautiful. With all like the clouds and smoke. The fact that they put this beautiful border all around it is really nice, and I like how we get some airbrushing here and there with some blues. Personally, I don't think I would have put the blue airbrushing on top of the border because it kind of gives it that classy look, and when you paint on top of it, it takes away from that. But it's by no means terrible, and I'll take this over a boring, everyday, simplistic, single-colored, flat base any day. The peg holding her up actually holds her fairly solid. I don't really like it, okay? So it's transparent, we see the peg going through it, and everything is just so visible. You really gotta look at her from a front view not to notice it, and it is kind of an eyesore for her plug-in piece to the base. Going into her shoes, we then have this nice white that isn't so bright. It gives me that snow vibe. Everything is so soft. She has cute heels at the bottom, however, under the sneaker, there's no detail, there's no treads, there's no traction. It's just flat. I'm sure it's like this in the game, but I personally would have liked to see them put a couple of extra details in some of these places that we don't normally see them in. The matte light gold that we get as a little point at the tip of her shoe, along with the wing pieces on the side, are very cute. It's something I actually never noticed. It makes me think of Cloud Retainer. She is, after all, her disciple, so it's nice to see that they put a little bit of connection of her master in there. I really love the little ropes that tie around her ankles and turn into these beautiful little flowers. This is very cute, and she is from Liyue after all, so it fits very nicely. Her legs are long and elegant and slender, where we have this beautiful gradient going up her tights, and on the tights we actually have a little motif. The motif is in the actual design, but it really pops more in the video game. Here we don't see it nearly enough. I don't know if they should have gone maybe a little bit darker, maybe put some sort of an outline, or more of a reflective gold, because it's supposed to be gold and it's very dark and not as reflective as I would have liked. Regardless, her legs and hips are very well sculpted, where we then get into, I guess it's like her bathing suit. It's a slightly darker fabric. It really indents into her body, making it feel like her legs are clicked into both sides of it as opposed to something that's digging into her skin, which is, I guess, just not as high quality as I would have liked, especially since it's so incredibly noticeable on the figure with how her dress falls on her. Even when looking at some more detailed shots of her behind, you can actually see the click-in pieces of it, and even with the shading, I feel like this wasn't professionally done. I feel like this should have been much more polished. The dress itself is very pretty, very flowy. I like how dynamic it is. The design in general is very cute, but that's not because of the sculptors, that's because of the video game. Along the back, we get this gorgeous dark gradient that goes into a blue, which goes into a lighter blue, trying to give us that, I guess, depth, watery feel, or aqua icy snow vibe that she expresses. We get a bunch of printed on designs here. I'm not sure if it's painted or printed, but it really does look printed to me. I feel like that would be easier and cheaper for them too. Where we then get into the white fabric on top. There's no changes of texture anywhere on this character. It's all just monotone. Anybody that knows me knows I love my textures, so it would have been nice to see a couple more in here. The gold design that we get across her white clothing is nice, but there's folding. But this white piece should have been done in two separate molds because the tails that we get in the back are supposed to go on top of the ones that we have on the side, and instead it's just one thick chunk where they just kind of paint around it, and I don't like that. I think that's cheap, and it should have been done much better. We have this beautiful gold clip design in the back, no shading, no highlights, but it does look like it was well sculpted, and I think it still looks kind of cute. Where we then get her beautiful red roped belt, or like side belt attachment piece. This is what's holding her vision. You don't really get to see the vision all that well because her arm is covering over it. They could have maybe just raised her arms a little bit so it could have popped a bit more. I'm not gonna dunk on that too much. The ribbon looks beautiful. I love the gradient that you get out of it. There's some gold paint applications too. I would have liked to see some shading going across the actual rope. This way the lines would be a little more defined. Where we then get into the front of her dress, which is cute. I mean, I love the wings that come along the side. The reds that they're using here on the very front doesn't look exactly like the red from the rope that's on her. I would have liked that red to be a little bit more saturated. We get this little decoupage where there's a diamond in the center of her stomach. I'm not sure if I'm quite a fan of how they did this. Having some of the print marks at the bottom that are in blue to give off that icy quills is okay. It's nice. It works. Her bathing suit, bodysuit, spandex adventure then kind of goes over the front of her chest, and this part actually looks pretty nice. You can see that they did a good job sculpting it and a decent job actually making the material look like it's a thicker material going over her body, despite it being form-fitting. She has this beautiful neck collar that has a big flattened out bell on the front. I'm not sure if this is because of the original design. There's a hole that goes through the top of this bell, and it doesn't look like it actually attaches to anything. It looks like it's just like put there. Design-wise, I feel like this should have had like a rope or something that attaches it to her neck piece. I don't know why it doesn't. This might be in her initial design as well. Gosh, for somebody who's been using Ganyu as one of their mains since release, I feel like I should know her design a little bit more by heart than this. I guess it's just because the second they showed that video of Cloud Retainer in that Shen Yun human form, so pretty. I also kind of have a thing for Navia, but that's just because she's so much like my wife, it's kind of eerie. She's the best, but Ganyu is also the best. I also really like Rosaria, and Shenhe is so great. What about Ito? He's the best. I love all of them. I'm going off track. The neck collar piece is cute. I like the design along with the outlines. But again, with no highlights and no shading, it all just feels kind of cheap. The only different in texture we get here is, I guess, the matte gold. It leads into the back where she has her fancy cute little bow that, from a design point, is terrible. But I'll get into that later. A nice sculpt, darker colors, a little bit of red, some gold on there. Like, the whole thing is, it's cute and it really looks like it's supposed to. We then get to see her elegant and delicate shoulders, which, you know, they all kind of look molded into the actual body. It doesn't feel necessarily like they're separated because they're not. Halfway down, her biceps are still connected to her rib cage, and the depth of the sculpt isn't pronounced enough for it to really feel like it's separated as much as it should be. Her back, however, looks amazing. I actually really like her back. It's very sharp, but this is something I'm a fan of. I think it looks kind of inhuman, and it works well with somebody that could be of her adeptal nature. The sleeves are, in my opinion, the nicest thing on this whole figure. They look great. It's so weird to say that about sleeves. The light blue has a nice white gradient as we get into the white part, which has some fun printed decals going across it for effect. We then get into the flayed out part of her sleeve, and this has like a couple of weird rigid lines and stuff to it, almost like they had a guideline of where to draw it, but they didn't do it properly. The sculpt here is not 100%, and that's a little disappointing because they did such a fantastic job with the shading and the coloring on it. Her hands are opened up and they are nice. Actually, the hands are really nice. The sculpt is very well done here. No shading or highlights, but they look like actual cute, delicate hands. The tiny marble she comes with is pretty. I think it's very well done, and I like the printing that goes across it that shows the adeptal Chillin creature on it. It's very nice. I just don't like the method in which it's attached into her hand. It has a little plastic pole that pegs into her right hand, and not well at all. It should go straight up into her forearm, but instead it goes directly into the hand. So, because her hands are so tiny and thin, it hardly goes in there at all. This thing falls out if you're not careful with it, and it's not necessarily easy to get it back in there and get it to stay there. And the issue that I have with this base, which I hadn't really mentioned before, is that this figure wobbles so much. There's so much wobbling. You're not going to get her to slowly lean or bend into one place, though she could have if she was doing anything more dynamic. But the fact is the figure's very light, and this is wobbly. So the marble could easily fall out if you have it in one of your DTOF displays. That's really not well thought out, but a lot of things on this figure are unfortunately not really well thought out. Going into her face, it's very petite and it angles inwards and downwards, pointy at the tip. I usually love my big round faces, so the fact that this girl here's face is not big and round and it's pointy and sharp kind of bugs me. The illustration that it's based off of actually bevels out to show off the cheeks, which makes it a lot rounder. The character's model in the video game is a lot rounder, but that's because they like to reuse a lot of the same character models. And then we have the illustration that you get as the splash art whenever you end up pulling her in the game, and even there, it's fairly round. I get that her hair really gives off the impression that her face is rounder than it is, but I'm okay with this. My issue is just that on the side of her head, it kind of goes inwards when it should either go straight or it should go in, out a little bit, and then down to make that triangle at the end. They didn't do that here, so her head looks kind of off and too small for the hair and everything else that she has going on, including her body. Maybe it's a little more anatomically correct to a human, but this is anime. The heads are usually a little bit bigger than they're supposed to be. And I like this. I think it's cute, so the fact that she doesn't have it here is a little bit frustrating. Aside from that, the mouth is small, cute, she has a nice little pointy nose, and her eyes are beautiful. The decals they used are gorgeous. I like the use of colors, and I think it just looks very alive. However, the colors are still muted, but I like this. It's not reflective, it doesn't feel stickery, it's very nice. Everything's kind of like matte. I guess in a way, having something that was a little shinier might have made the eyes pop a bit more, and feel a little like that gloss you get from the actual eye. So that's why it's never bothered me to have eyes that are a little more stickery-ish. But it does look really nice here regardless. The eyebrows as well seem kind of like they're printed on as opposed to being painted. This is okay, it looks nice. Her hair is loaded with shading. We've got highlights, we've got a little bit of everything going on here. It definitely has the same silhouette as from the game. I like the little points and the twirls, I love the little antenna that she has. In the back, it seems like they almost tried to do this kind of effect where the lines go into her hair, but it's not particularly successfully well done. But they tried, and I'll give them props for trying. The highlight in the back of her head, which darkens and then gradients back into a lighter and then a darker color. There's a lot of motion to this hair, and the hair is very beautiful. I know earlier I mentioned that the sleeves were probably the most well done part of this figure. I kind of take that back now. I gotta give it to the hair. The hair sculpt is fantastic. Even with the little complaints I had, it still looks really, really good. Just the weaving in and out of all the different strands, it's beautiful. On top of her head, she has these cute little horns. They, the red on them should have been a lot more pronounced. It just seems like they printed on these red designs on the darker horn, and the red just didn't take properly, and rather than doing a second go of it or finding a paint that's a little bit more opaque, they just thought, whatever. Upon her release, she was going for 15,000 yen. Oh, honestly, for what you're getting here, I mean, there's Koto statues that are cheaper than this that give you so much more. So, I don't know what to say here. Like, you're paying a huge premium for that Genshin Impact title, and because they know that despite you paying 15,000 yen for this Ganyu figure, it's much less expensive than actually trying to get her in the game. At least, if you haven't been saving up.
I mean, I'm pretty close. Oh my gosh, what the heck? Right away? Come on! I'm part of the meme now.
To give you a good idea of price point, Mona over here, made by Good Smile Company, is actually 17,600 yen upon her release. That's 2,600 yen more than Ganyu. But her quality is equivalent to that. I'm not saying she's the best figure ever, but for what you're paying, she's pretty good. Whereas this wobbly mess over here is literally like for 20 bucks. Are you kidding me? This figure should have been a lot more impressive. It hurts so much to be dunking on her like this because Ganyu, I mean, she's my first C6 character. I freaking love this design in the game so much, so there's a lot of things that I'm just sad that they didn't pull it all together here. Despite saying I love her design a second ago, there's one aspect of her design that drives me bonkers, and that's the fact that she has her little bow in the back of her neck. This clearly should have been put on her hair, because it looks like she just has a long rat tail, and I really don't like that. I get that maybe it's supposed to feel like a tail that she maybe has, but it's just, it's aesthetically not the most pleasing thing. And all it would have taken to fix that is to have this bow wrapped around her actual hair.
One thing I gotta say is that I love her new costume in the game so much. Look at that hair. That's amazing. She no longer has that weird rat tail. It's all beautifully tied up in the back and it looks gorgeous.
Now, she does come with a couple of extra pieces. Like one, if you were willing to break your bank hard enough and score Ning Huang with this crazy base, you get to actually attach her onto this little piece here that she comes with. You basically remove some leaves and then you put this thing here. She comes out easily enough, you pop her out, you put her in there, boom. Ganyu's a lot less wobbly on this base. Also, the fact that you can swap her back and forth is really easy, it's not super tight, and it always feels solid. So the plastics they used are pretty good for doing this. However, her color does not fit with this whatsoever. It looks weird, it's off. Maybe if she had some papers or something, she's taking notes, but she's just here about to do her special power, she's just chilling, looking at her abilities. This doesn't fit. This is the weirdest combo figure that I've seen in a long time, and I really would have preferred her to match up with this nicely, considering this clearly wasn't an afterthought. Based off of Ninghuang that has parts that are removable like that. So all in all, do I think she's worth it? I don't know. That depends on you and your collection. I feel like I say that all the time, but it's true. If you've got a whole detail full of light pastel blues and white characters, she'll fit in nicely there. If you're looking for accuracy, this figure's just not it, especially with the face. I mean, come on. If you can get her for a really good deal, then I'd say she's probably worth it. You definitely don't need to have Ninghuang to make her work. If anything, I have the two together on my display because it takes up less space than using the actual base plate. And I think the base plate's cute. It's just that I don't have a lot of space, and Ninghuang is a freaking ridiculous over-the-top large base that I am ridiculous and over-the-top for having gotten in the first place. This does not fit in a small apartment for somebody who collects multiple figures. But Ganyu definitely does. So hopefully this video review has made you come to a conclusion of which side of the fence you're on getting this Ganyu by Apex Toys. If you like my video just a little bit, it doesn't cost much to hit that like, hit that subscribe, and start ringing that notification bell. It doesn't cost much, and it goes such a long way for helping my channel expand. I really love and appreciate your help and support. Thank you so much for watching, and have an amazing rest of your day. Can we get Mona in up in here? Sorry, Ninghuang, but your reign of terror is over. Woo! As the new queen sits in her place. Oh my god, can this fit? Kind of. Not really. Maybe we could have her reading this tablet. Ancient tablet. Then I can maybe have this somewhere around the back here, so it looks kind of like the clouds in the background. No. No clouds. What am I doing?